What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the Fantasy Dome. And today we're going to be doing our second to last mock draft. I mean, the draft is less than a week away at this point. I'm going to do one more before the draft hits, but this one for our last draft before, I guess, our last draft before our final one, second to last. We are going to be doing a 2-round mock draft. All 32 teams, 2 rounds with trades. It's going to be a banger. And once again, if you guys love this video, please leave a like and subscribe. If we hit either 25 subscribers or 5 likes on this video, if we hit either of those, my last draft before the NFL draft will be a 4-round draft. We'll be going 4 rounds in. Maybe we'll see 3 or 4. Depends on how what the reception like, if we want to see 3 or want to see 4. So leave it down in the comments if you would rather see 3 or 4. But let's get started. And it looks like the top 3 are pretty set in stone. At least the top 2. Cam Ward is going number 1 overall, and Travis Hunter is going number 2 overall. Now that we're getting closer and closer to the draft, it seems a bit more obvious what teams are going to be doing. And so Cam Ward and Travis Hunter are the obvious 1A and 1B players in this class. But now going to the Giants at number 3, they didn't schedule any top 30 visits with these two guys, but they love them in the pre-draft process. Why would that happen? Because Cam Ward and Travis Hunter are going 1 and 2. Cam Ward to the Titans has been obvious now, but now Travis Hunter to the Browns is being even more obvious. Now, the Giants have a couple options here. The Giants have Abdul Carter out of Penn State. They have Shedeur Sanders out of Colorado, or they trade down. I think there's no other player that you can take here that will justify this pick. And if you wanted to take a player like Mason Graham, Will Campbell, Armand Membu, Will Johnson, like any of those guys, you would trade down because they are not worth the number 3 overall pick, especially when Abdul Carter is sitting there on the board. Now, I think the most realistic option is Abdul Carter going to the Giants. So that's what I'm going to go with. Abdul Carter to the Giants. Once again, this guy is an absolute freak of nature. I'm a Giants and a Penn State fan. I've watched this guy for 3 years, and he has been pretty much dominant in everything that he's done. And a lot of people are saying, like, oh, he's overrated. People are just saying because he's Penn State, he's going to be Micah Parsons. This guy, I watched in the Notre Dame game, him being held for like 80% of his plays. You can see the offensive tackles had no idea what to do with him, and he wasn't getting the calls. So, Abdul Carter to 3 here at the Giants. Now let's go to the Patriots at number 4. It's going to be Will Campbell. I don't think that they're going to care too much about the size implications. And so I think that Will Campbell is the pick here at 4. And, once again, best offensive lineman on the board. Now, the Jags, this is where we're going to get our first trade in. I think that the Bears are desperate for a running back. Ben Johnson absolutely loves his guys, and I think that Ashton Jeanty is the player that they love. But the issue is that the Raiders are going to take him at 6. It's pretty much a given, and I think they know that. So what's going to happen here is we're going to be trading up the Chicago Bears with Jacksonville, and it's basically going to consist of a package of the 5th overall pick and Chicago's 2 pick. At least Chicago's 1st, 2nd, and then some other stuff in the back. I don't usually mess with stuff as often, so, or like the inner workings of trades. So basically, I'm just gonna make sure it goes through. So basically, that's not the trade I don't think is gonna happen, but the Jags will trade down so that the Chicago Bears can come up and jump the Raiders for Ashton Jeanty. I don't think they want to settle for Omarion Hampton, even though he's a really, really good player. I don't think they want to settle. So I think here is where Ashton Jeanty goes and becomes a very solid running back, which leaves the Raiders in a pretty easy spot. It's going to be Mason Graham for me. I always have him to the Jags, but now that Ashton Jeanty is off the board, I think they go to their defense. It could be Ted McMillan too, but I think that Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers will do just fine in the receiving room compared to their other definite needs. Pick number 7, Armand Membou. Jets need a right tackle. I did not realize how absolutely down bad their offensive tackles are. And I think that tight end definitely could be a possibility here, but I think that offensive tackle is more of a need than tight end is. Which leaves the Panthers at 8 with Jalen Walker. Once again, absolutely love this fit. Jalen Walker is an unbelievable player and the second best edge rusher in this class besides Abdul Carter. And he definitely has so much potential to be the new Brian Burns on this Panthers team. Now, the Saints are an interesting dilemma here. It's, do they go Shedeur Sanders or do they not go Shedeur Sanders? And for me, I don't think they're going to go with Sanders just because their team is already expensive. They're aging. They do not have a good young core to put this new quarterback around. So I think that they're going to try and start to build up that good offensive core with edge rusher Mike Green out of Marshall. Now, I see Mike Green falling a little bit, mainly the Falcons at 13 or 14. I think that Mike Green has been flying up the boards. I know a lot of teams really like him. I don't personally like him, but he's been really, really high up. And I think that the Saints could use a dominant edge rusher who is young to restart this rebuild. They drafted offensive line last year. They draft defensive line this year. And I think that it's a really, really good fit for the Saints. Now going to Jacksonville at 10, they just traded down. So who do they want to get? I think it's going to be Will Johnson. Will Johnson was my pick a lot of the time at 5 for the Jaguars. However, Will Johnson kind of fell a little bit farther, and the Jags signed a corner in free agency. However, I don't think that this time they will pass on taking a corner. I don't think it's going to be another defensive tackle, because if they wanted a good defensive tackle, they probably would have taken Mason Graham here. But I think Will Johnson goes right here to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And now I think with the 49ers is where you get the second D tackle off the board. So who's it going to be? Is it going to be Derek Harmon? Is it going to be Walter Nolan, Kenneth Grant? I think it's going to be Walter Nolan. I think Walter Nolan is the second best defensive tackle in this class, and I think he is going to be the second defensive tackle off the board. And the Niners need one. They lost their top 2 guys, and I think overall Walter Nolan is exactly who they need at defensive tackle. And now with the Cowboys, one of their desperate needs is a receiver, or you could even say a running back. Is their desperate need as well? I think I'm actually gonna go with a trade down here, and I think the reason why is because there's still a lot of value on this board. People trade up for edge rushers, offensive tackles, tight ends. I think that there's going to be a team that's going to want this pick, especially if the board falls down this way. And who do I think it is? I think that who would want to jump the teams that are close here? So the Dolphins probably taking a safety. I have them, or a defense, maybe offensive lineman. Oh yeah, it's either, actually, never mind. They're taking offensive lineman. That's going to take a tight end. So if I had to guess, right, they're going Kelvin Banks or maybe even Gray Zabel. The Colts are going to go Tyler Warren. The Falcons are going to go an edge rusher, so Shamar Stewart. And then the Bengals are probably also going to go with like a secondary player. So, and maybe so with the Cardinals. Do I trade down here with the Cowboys? I don't know who would want to trade up for this pick. Maybe the Seattle Seahawks or maybe the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's tough to say. But I think that it's going to be... I think it's not going to be a trade up. I've just decided against it. I don't think that there's a team that's going to want anybody on this board that doesn't think they're going to fall for them. So I'm going to go Matthew Golden. He's the Texas receiver. The Cowboys have more Texas players than anybody in the league just because they love their Texas guys. And I think Matthew Golden is a better fit along CeeDee Lamb than Tetairoa McMillan is. Do I think Tetairoa McMillan is a better receiver than Matthew Golden? I think he will be. However, I think that Matthew Golden is a lot better of a fit in Dallas. So Matthew Golden here to the Cowboys. Now we get the Miami Dolphins. So the Miami Dolphins have 2 picks in this mock, 13 and 48. Not too terrible. I don't think they trade back here. I think they do take the best offensive lineman available, Kelvin Banks Jr. I think that it was between him, Josh Simmons, Gray Zabel, even Josh Connerly Jr. I think it's even Ursary, but I feel like it might be a bit too early for some of those guys. Kelvin Banks was the consensus number 2 offensive lineman in this draft for a while, and now he's dropped all the way to the 3rd, sometimes maybe even 4th or 5th option. I think that Kelvin Banks could play anywhere on this line, which is exactly what the Dolphins need right now, especially after Teron Armstead's retirement. Tyler Warren to the Colts, probably the worst position group in the NFL right now is the Colts in Tyler Warren. So now you have the Falcons here. If the Falcons didn't have Drake London, I would have them taking Tetairoa McMillan here. Or if Drake London was like 6 foot or 5'11", I would have Tetairoa McMillan here. But since they clash in their playing styles, I am actually going to still take edge Shamar Stewart here because I think that Shamar Stewart, once again, an absolutely super solid edge rusher, and the Falcons desperately need one. So that's what we're going to be doing. Now the Cardinals here definitely could use a pretty much everything. Secondary edge, a lot of stuff. I do have Mykel Williams going here. I think Mykel Williams has a lot of potential to be the best edge rusher in this class. I have him mocked as a top 10 pick a lot of the time. However, it seems that he's slipping a little bit farther in favor of Jalen Walker on his own team, Mike Green, and Shamar Stewart, the athletic freak. So I'm going to have Mykel Williams coming here to the Cardinals. Now is where we're going to have a trade down spot. So what we're going to be having is we're going to be having the LA Chargers trade up with the Cincinnati Bengals. Let me actually quickly do this. So the reason I have the LA Chargers trading up here is because you have a couple teams above, like the Seahawks, the Broncos. They could both be taking receivers, and they could be jumped. And you see Tetairoa McMillan this far down the board, and you can kind of see why he fell. I mean, there's not many teams that really need a desperate receiver more than a lot of other people. And if the Chargers really like Tetairoa McMillan, I think that it's an easy fix to be going up. Do I think the second-round pick this year gets traded for it? I actually don't believe so. I think that it's going to be I think it's going to be most likely a next year's second and a third this year. So I'm going to have the Chargers keep their second-round pick for this year. I don't think that they're going to trade that away. So the Chargers trade up for Tetairoa McMillan to complement Ladd McConkey. I think they work absolutely perfect together. Tetairoa McMillan can be that deep route runner who catches like everything, and Ladd McConkey can kind of keep the role that he was this year, just kind of getting open on a lot of plays. I think that it's a great 1-2 punch and get Herbert another weapon. I know they like Colston Loveland too. They love their tight ends, and I know it is John Harbaugh, and he likes his run plays, but I think that Tetairoa McMillan is the pick here. Now for Seattle, offensive line is going to be the pick here, and it's going to be offensive lineman Gray Zabel. I feel like they could use pretty much anything on the offensive line, so I'm going to go with the guy who plays anywhere on the offensive line in Gray Zabel. Now the Tampa Bay Buccaneers go, and they need a corner, safety, edge, and I see Malachi Starks here, and I am pressing the draft button on him every single time. Malachi Starks is unbelievably good prospect, and is, really, really solid in terms of being the best safety in this class, even above Nick Emenwari, who is also disgustingly good. And he basically takes his Bucs defense from pretty good to elite, I think. Now the Broncos, you see my mouse hovering over it, we're going to have a trade down with the Broncos, and the team that I will be trading up with may surprise you, and it's going to be the Cleveland Browns. And there's a specific reason that I have for doing this. Once again, they only have a second. I think a next year's first is probably in play, maybe a second. I think that it's bold, but what I think is going to happen is I think the Browns are going to trade into the first round again, so that they can take Shedeur Sanders and combine both Colorado teammates, Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders. And even better, you jump the Steelers, who are most likely going to take a quarterback with this pick. And now that you don't have a quarterback, it makes it a little bit more difficult. And I think this is going to be Omarion Hampton in this case. Because if this happens, and also if Aaron Rodgers doesn't sign with anyone yet, I think that the Steelers are going to go after Aaron Rodgers, and they see Omarion Hampton here. I don't think they pull the trigger on Jackson Dart, because I don't think he's a first-round talent, and I think that they think that there's a lot of quarterbacks later in this draft who they'd rather have. So I'm going Omarion Hampton here because I don't trust Jaylen Warren a lot. He had a really rough season last year, and the Steelers definitely lost Najee Harris. And, maybe they go another first-round running back, Omarion Hampton. And I know the Broncos probably would have loved to take him with pick 20, but I think that they're going to be eyeing a running back later in the draft instead of in the first round. And with the trade back with the Browns, they will be acquiring a lot more picks, and the Browns most likely will suck. So I think that they'll feel good taking it. The Cincinnati Bengals, they need a defensive player, and the matter is, who is it going to be? Nick Emmanwori. I have them coming to the Bengals a lot. I think he's an athletic freak at safety. Jesse Bates was unbelievable on that team for a while. And I think what this team needs is an absolutely elite player in that secondary. They have Trey Hendrickson on the edge. I know he might not stay, but they have Hendrickson on the edge. Now they need a secondary player. And the only elite secondary player I see left is Nick Emmanwori. The Packers, they need edge, they need receiver. They could even take Derek Harmon here, but I am going to go with edge, and I'm going to go James Pierce Jr. I know there's character concerns. I think the talent outweighs that a bunch, and the Green Bay Packers are going to see him here, and I do not think that they're going to let him fall to these bottom rounds and let these teams get a hold of James Pierce Jr. I think he's too good to be going any less than like 25 or 26. Now, the Minnesota Vikings take Jahdae Barron. I know they just re-signed Byron Murphy, but that secondary still isn't amazing, and I think they could definitely upgrade it even more with another corner. Jahdae Barron is really, really good in this class. A lot of people have him going a lot higher. I have Will Johnson over Barron, even though he is a little bit more injured. But overall, I think Jahdae Barron to the Vikings here makes a lot of good sense. Now the Houston Texans. So the Houston Texans are going to be on the board, and they need offensive line. So it's just a matter of who you want to take. I'm going to shore down the left tackle position with Josh Simmons. I usually take Gray Zabel here, but I have him going earlier in this mock. But Josh Simmons, once again, solid tackle, and he has the potential to be one of the best in this league. And I think that the reason why the Texans kept trading away their offensive linemen is because they see a lot of guys they like in this draft. And if Josh Simmons is one of them, hopefully they like him. Now, the LA Rams. It's a bit of an interesting one. I have them taking Jihad Campbell. Jihad Campbell could definitely go a lot higher than this, but I have him falling a little bit because linebacker is not as much of a position of need. Plus, the Cowboys decided to go wide receiver instead of linebacker. And the Rams are absolutely stoked to get the best linebacker in the class right here. And overall, once again, Jihad Campbell, super solid. Love him on the Rams. Ravens, guard, edge, corner. They could do a lot of stuff here. I'm going to go with corner Trey Amos. I really like him. I think that he definitely could have a first-round grade. I know they just drafted Nate Wiggins last year, and they have Marlon Humphrey. But I think that what can you do with another corner? I think that Trey Amos could slot in, maybe put Nate Wiggins even in the slot or Trey Amos in the slot. But I think that overall having three elite cornerbacks could definitely help this Ravens offense out. Which leads to the Lions. I think it's a one-for-one swap. They lost Kevin Zeitler. They get Tyler Booker. Just basically one-for-one swap. Put Tyler Booker next to the best right tackle in football, and I think that he excels. With the Washington Commanders, it's a bit interesting because I see them taking probably a DB as well. It could be an edge also, maybe a D tackle if they need one, but probably not. I'm going to go Nick Scorton. I think they need an edge. It's the number one team need according to PFF. They don't really have anybody. And I think their secondary with a healthy Marshawn Lattimore won't be as bad. And they just got Mikey Sanger still as well. And there's not a safety besides Xavier Watts that I would even consider taking in the first round besides the two guys that went before him. Buffalo Bills, I think, is going to be an interesting position. I see a lot of receivers here. It definitely could be a receiver, but I'm going to go with Maxwell Hairston. Usually go with him. He is, once again, I think he's one of the better corners in this class. He is really shifty, and he's super fast, and I think that he could definitely have a good impact. So for the Chiefs now, we need offensive line. So let's take a look. Josh Connolly Jr., Ursary, Marcus Mabeau, Cam Williams. Offensive guard, you got Donovan Jackson, Jonas Savaina. No centers. Gonna go Josh Connolly Jr. Once again, I know he got bodied by Mike Green at the Senior Bowl, but the Chiefs need offensive linemen. They lost Joe Thuney, and who was basically their left tackle last year. I think that Josh Connolly Jr. is the guy. Lastly, with the Philadelphia Eagles, I think that it's going to be a bit of an interesting spot because you have Donovan Ezeraku, Landon Jackson, J.C. Tumilo. You also have Josiah Stewart and Jack Sawyer, who definitely could be even higher than he is right now. I think he's super underrated in terms of this mock draft software. I am going to go Donovan Ezeraku. They lost a lot of their edges. He's the best edge on the board. I'll take him here. So, that's the first round. And now, unlike most of our mock drafts, we get to go straight into the second round. And the Broncos right here, I think the Broncos see Emeka Egbuka and Luther Burden III on the board, and they're going to take a shot on one of these guys. And who's it going to be? Egbuka or Burden? I don't know who it's going to be. I'll be completely honest. I feel like it could be a toss-up. I am going to go Emeka Egbuka just because he showed a little bit more in college. He can move a little bit more around the team. And I think that overall, solid receiver. And yeah, that's my take on Egbuka. Falls out of the first round, but still, very solid receiver. I just don't see a lot of these teams. Maybe the Ravens take a receiver. Maybe the Texans take a receiver, but they need offensive line. Maybe the Packers, but I just don't see it. Now it's time for the Giants at pick 34. If they go defense in the first round, the second pick must be offense. There's no way it can't be offense just because of our defense basically starters. You've got Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, Abdul Carter, Bobby Okereke, Kayvon Thibodeau, Paulson Adebo, Drew Phillips, Javon Holland, Tyler Newman. You have a good defense. I think we're good on that for right now. I think that most of the picks in this draft should be offense, especially if we go Abdul Carter at 3. But the real question is, who do we go with here? Derek Harmon fell absolutely super far. Jackson Dart, maybe. You could take a developmental quarterback here. Luther Burden III, Colston Loveland fell super far. Jalen Milroe. I know they really want to target a quarterback. And if I was going with what I think is going to happen, I think I'd pick Jackson Dart. But if I see Luther Burden III here on the board, I think I'm going to take him and maybe jump the Titans who might want to take him. Because Luther Burden, you need a 1A and 1B in this Giants offense for Russell Wilson to throw to. I think Luther Burden is going to be amazing in the slot. You have Slayton who could play outside. You have Wan'Dale Robinson you could rotate in. Having 4 receivers would be super good for this team. And I think Luther Burden, people forget that he was basically a top 10 projected pick in the draft. Not last year, but I guess he was last year before he had a bad college season this season. But his team was just bad. And I think that overall his quarterback play drastically decreased. Now, Tennessee Titans, I look at receiver. I don't see anyone I royally like taking here. You want to get Cam Ward a nice weapon. You also could use an edge rusher, maybe some defensive backs. Siobhan Revelle is still here. Derek Harmon's still here. If you were going BPA, you'd go one of the defensive tackles, maybe even Colston Loveland, but Chigakonko is good enough, I think. I think it's probably going to be... It's going to be tough. I don't see them taking defense. I see them wanting to take a big weapon, but I see Derek Harmon on the board. I could see a team trying to trade up for him. And I don't know who that'd be. The Jags are next. I think they'll probably... Someone might want to try and jump the Jags, maybe? But it's tough. I'm going to go Ravel. The Titans could use a cornerback, and Siobhan Ravel is one of those guys who is super, super solid and basically a first-round talent. So I'm taking him here in the second. And the next pick we're going to be doing is the Jacksonville Jags. And I think they're over the moon right here in getting Derek Harmon in the second round. We passed on Mason Graham to get Will Johnson. We thought we were passing on more defensive tackles, but Derek Harmon makes a super big fall like Jerzon Newton did. And I think that Derek Harmon is a great pick here for the Jags at 36 value-wise. Now the Raiders, their biggest need is tight end, so they're going to take Colston Loveland. No. We took a defensive tackle in the first round, so I think the next pick is going to be on the offensive side of the ball. But the real question is who is it going to be? It's going to be Jackson Dart. And the reason I picked Jackson Dart is because Geno Smith is getting older. I know they just traded a third for him, but I think that you're going to want to get this quarterback developing early behind a veteran who has been really solid the last couple of years, and Jackson Dart is just the perfect player to do that under. So, Jackson Dart going to the Raiders, which leaves the Patriots here at 38. They need a lot of stuff. We got offensive line in the first round, and honestly, I think that it's going to be an edge this round. And the reason I say it's going to be an edge is because that Patriots defense is almost as bad as that offense. They have nobody. And I'm going to go with Josiah Stewart. I think that he's criminally underrated. I think that Josiah Stewart may even make it into the first round. But there's just so many good edge rushers. And I think that Josiah Stewart here makes sense in terms of the Patriots. They get the trenches, offensive and defensive line, and he could be a stud. I mean, really, really good. The Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, here's a big question. Will the Jaguars stick with Brenton Strange at tight end, or do they take Colston Loveland here? It's a really good question. They got corner. They got defensive tackle. They could go offensive lineman here, but who would you go with? Maybe a guard, Airsary. You could go Donovan Jackson, but you have Brendan Sheriff. It's a really big question. You could even go safety, replace Andre Sisco, even try not another defensive tackle. Corner, maybe Benjamin Morrison. You could even go a wide receiver with Trey Harris to put alongside Brian Thomas Jr. However, I am going to go wide receiver. I'm not going to go Trey Harris, though. I'm going to go with Jack Beck. And I know that he is projected to go a lot lower, but he really excelled in the Senior Bowl. And I know, once again, TCU wide receiver, never take him. But they're going to want someone to put alongside Brian Thomas Jr. because all they have is I think I saw a clip. It was the Jags coach talking about someone talking about who their starting wide receivers were, someone in the Jags organization. And it's just like, yeah, we got Brian Thomas, we got Parker Washington, and we got some other guy. I don't remember his name. But there's no mention of Gabe Davis, which means I think they're not going to be using him as much because he kind of sucks. But Jack Beck could be a number 2 for this Jags team. And I think that the Jags are one of the big winners of this draft. Will Johnson, Derek Harmon, and Jack Beck. You want to get those 3 out of your first 3 picks. And trading down with the Bears, I think was a great move for them. Now the New Orleans Saints, this is where they're going to be taking their quarterback, maybe a developmental guy. I'm going to take Jalen Milroe, and I think that Jalen Milroe has even potential to go into the first round because Jalen Milroe is, a really raw talent, but he has a lot of potential, and I really, really like his potential. but he needs years to sit and learn. And the years that he's going to sit and learn are the years where the Saints team is going to be rebuilding. If you drafted Shedeur Sanders, he's going to be wanting to start immediately. I think that was a bad idea, and yeah, Jalen Milroe here gets taken by the Saints. And they will walk out of this draft with Mike Green and Jalen Milroe. I am happy as a Saints fan. Now the Chicago Bears' second round pick, the one that they did not trade to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And where do they go here? I think that Montez Sweat definitely needs some help on that defensive line, which is going to be helped by maybe Jack Sawyer. I think I'm going to go with JT Tuimoloau. Once again, just an Ohio State edge rusher. They need somebody else to take the pressure off Montez Sweat in that edge group. It was one of the worst in the league last year, and I think their offense is done. Now getting Ashton Jeanty, they have two good receivers, DJ Moore and Rome Odunze. They have Ashton Jeanty. Their offensive line has spent the entire offseason trying to get better. Cole Kmet is still a good tight end. They just didn't use him last year. They gave him no targets. It's the defense that needs more of the help in the draft than the offense does. The offense is on Caleb Williams, and you can't do any more to help him besides replace him. New York Jets, this is where Colston Loveland is going to go. They are thrilled to get Colston Loveland at this price. Once again, second best tight end in this class. Takes a huge fall just because his production this year wasn't very good. And I think overall, Colston Loveland is just a guy who you are super happy to get if you're the Jets, especially after you pass on Tyler Warren. But M'Boue and Loveland, great draft for the Jets. Now, the San Francisco 49ers, in the first round, we took Walter Nolan. Who else did we lose? We lost their starting linebacker, which is why we're going to go with Carson Schwezinger. We lost Dre Greenlaw. I know we have Fred Warner already, but I think that Carson Schwezinger could definitely be a solid type player and could, really help in replacing Dre Greenlaw in that sense. Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw being a dominant off-ball linebacker crew, which is what the Niners like. Dallas Cowboys, we went with Matthew Golden in the first round. We're going to go with another offensive skill position. Or should we go offensive skill position? Yeah, we're going to go offensive skill position, and we're going to go Caleb Johnson. I know people have Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins above him, but I think that, the style of running the football, power back, I think the Cowboys are willing to try something a little bit new. And I think that Caleb Johnson is a very interesting product because I know he ran a 4.6 at the combine. He's not the fastest guy in the world, but he can truck through and he can get into open space better than pretty much anybody in this class can. Colts taking Tyler Warren in the first round, and they're going to go with Donovan Jackson in the second. Anthony Richardson definitely needs help on the offensive line. They have Quentin Nelson, and that's about it. But overall, I think that they could use an upgrade at right guard because they lost Will Rice too. And Donovan Johnson, once again, plug and play. Atlanta Falcons, there's a bunch of players you could go with. You could even go with the safety, Xavier Watts, because Justin Simmons, I think, is leaving. I don't know if he went back, but I see two defensive tackles here. Who do I look at more? Do I want the big run-stopping Tyleik Williams, or do I want the more pass rusher Kenneth Grant? I'm going to go with the defensive tackle that's a run stopper because we got Shamar Stewart in the first. So we're boosting up that defensive line for this Falcons team. And once again, I think I'm happy with that as a Falcons fan. Their defensive line was one of the worst units in the league last year. Now, the Cardinals is where I'm going to be taking Benjamin Morrison. So Benjamin Morrison is the best outside corner left in this draft. And I think that Benjamin Morrison, while injury prone and didn't have a great season, you do have a couple guys like Darian Porter, Isaiah Thomas, Denzel Burke, Dorian Strong. I think that Benjamin Morrison was a first-round talent until he got hurt. And the Cardinals need an outside guy. They only have Grant Williams in the slot, and they definitely could use a guy like Benjamin Morrison. And in the second, I'm not saying no to that. Dolphins got Kelvin Banks in the last round. I think just because of how bad their offensive line is, they're going to go with offensive line again, except this time we're going to go with the interior instead of the exterior. Or should we? I disagree with that. Because Kelvin Banks might not be a good exterior player, we're just going to get 2 tackles in the first 2 rounds. Kelvin Banks and Ariante Ursary. I think that these are 2 really solid tackles in this draft. Kelvin Banks has the potential to play inside as well if he's not as good. But you basically have a competition between the 2 of them. Whoever's better, put him at left tackle. The other one, put him at right tackle or find another spot for him. Now the Bengals definitely could use some help on the run defense. And I see Kenneth Grant right here. Boom. Taking that any day of the week. Kenneth Grant is an unbelievable talent, an unbelievable player. And once again, falling to 49, Bengals are absolutely over the moon about that. Seahawks here at 50 and 52. They have 2 picks pretty much back-to-back. So what are they going to do? They could use a wide receiver, but honestly, I don't think they're going to take one early just because they have JSN and Cooper Kupp. Jake Bobo, I feel, is a fine 3, but who do I think they're going to take? I think they took Gray Zabel in the first round. Anywhere on the offensive line. I think they go edge Landon Jackson in the second. Mr. What is it? The funny high school video, Landon Jackson. Yeah, but once again, they need an edge rusher. I know they drafted Byron Murphy, but he's more of a regular defensive tackle. And I think Landon Jackson could definitely help them get some pressure, much needed pressure on the quarterback. So once again, filling out the trenches for the Seattle Seahawks. And then the Broncos this is where they're going to be taking their running back. And it's a matter of who do you like more between Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, and DJ Giddens. And I'm going to go Travion Henderson. Broncos are probably going to be super happy to get him here. Yes, it's not Omarion Hampton, but it's still a really, really solid group. You get Egbuka and Travion Henderson, basically 2 guys who could have been first rounders. Lastly, Seattle Seahawks, like I said, I don't think they're going to go receiver in this instance. I think they aren't going to go DB either. They could go with a safety, but I think I see them going with another offensive lineman. And we took a guard in the first round. No, we took a guy who could play anywhere. So who am I going to take here? Could go center. They could use a center, I think. But I'm going to go Marcus Mabeau. Once again, the premier tackles, it happens Emory Jones, Ozzie Trapelo, Cameron Williams, and then it starts to fall off a lot. So I feel like the Seahawks are going to want another offensive lineman. So just like the Dolphins, they get 2 offensive linemen, but they also add an edge. And I think the Seahawks are pretty happy with this. Buccaneers take Malachi Starks in the first. They take Xavier Watts in the second. We are going to hammer this secondary. We're taking a safety who also has been mocked in the first round in a couple of drafts. So Xavier Watts right here, super solid first rounder. And once again, 3rd best safety in the class. I like it right here. Green Bay Packers, they took James Pierce Jr. in the first. This one's an obvious one for me, and I'm going to go with Trey Harris. I think that they need an alpha number 1 receiver. I think that Trey Harris could be that guy. I think he's criminally underrated. But I know I say that when I take Jack Beck over him. But I think the Packers is a good landing spot for him. He fits in really well. Him on the outside on one, Jaden Reed on the outside on the other. LA Chargers take Tet McMillan. So what could they use? Now is the time where they're probably going to get a tight end. I see Mason Graham here. He doesn't really have good blocking. That's the issue. It's interesting because I feel like they would want a tight end that can block. I don't think it's going to be Gunnar Helm. Honestly, their ideal player would have been Colston Loveland, but I had them taking Tetairoa McMillan anyway. So, I think I'm going to go... It's tough to say. What's the defensive tackle situation looking like? I think I'm going to go with TJ Sanders out of South Carolina. Once again, I think he's a super solid center. I think that... Not center. Why did I say center? Super solid defensive tackle. And I really like what he's been doing in college, South Carolina. And once again, just beef up that defensive line. And I think that Jim Harbaugh is not going to find the offensive lineman or tight end that he wants at this portion of the draft. Buffalo Bills right here. They could use a receiver, but we did not get one in the first, but they have 2 second-round picks. So we're going to go with a receiver. But who's that going to be? Jalen Noel, Jalen Royals, Jaden Higgins, Kyle Williams, Alec Ayomanor. I'm going to go Jalen Royals. Super high on Jalen Royals. Absolutely love him. He's a complete wide receiver. He is super solid, and I think that he can work really well with Khalil Shakir. They lost Matt Collins. I know he wasn't too much of a part in this offense, but I also don't think that Jalen Royals is going to be sharking targets from Khalil Shakir. They need a second guy on that offense to receive, not James Cook. And I think they're going to take Jalen Royals. And once again, the Carolina Panthers, they're going to get a big body receiver for Bryce Young to throw to in Jaden Higgins. Higgins, 6'4", 214, super big receiver, and really he needs it. I mean, they took Jalen Walker in the first, Jaden Higgins in the second. I'm a Panthers fan. I'm super happy about this. Now, the Houston Texans take Josh Simmons in the first round and take Jonah Savaina in the second round. This draft has to be a lot of offensive linemen, and I think the first 2 picks for the Texans will be that offensive lineman. He is... If you're the Texans, you're probably not too happy about seeing 2 offensive linemen, but you need it. So, I'm going to give it to you. The Baltimore Ravens is the next team on the clock, and what do they need? We took a corner in the first round. They could use guard. They could even use an edge rusher, linebacker maybe. So let's take a look at those guys. I think I'm going to go Jack Sawyer here. Jack Sawyer, once again, super underrated on this app. I think he is definitely a second rounder. So 2 Ohio State edge rushers going in the second round. And once again, I think that the Ravens could definitely use an edge rusher. And they didn't get him in the first round. Once again, beef up that defense. The Lions, in the first round, we took Tyler Booker, 1-for-1 swap. Definitely could use an edge, maybe another corner or safety. Who do I like out of the safety group? We have Macumba, Kevin Winston Jr., Lathan Ransom, Jalen Reed, Andrew Macumba. I think I'm going to go with one of my sleepers in this draft, and that's Darian Porter out of Iowa State at cornerback. They did just sign DJ Reed, but I think that they definitely could use another guy. And Darian Porter, I feel like could play out the other side of him, or even just like they could swap out, or maybe one of them goes to the slot for a second. Darian Porter, super solid cornerback 1, and maybe can give this Lions secondary a spark. The Washington Commanders, that is where I think that they're definitely going to need another secondary player. I didn't take it in the first round. I'm going to take safety, and I'm going to take another one of my sleepers, Kevin Winston Jr. out of Penn State. He was on fire to start the season before he got that season-ending injury. I think they take a shot on him. His season was tough, and he's got a lot of upside. I think he could have been a first-rounder if he played the entire season. But, yeah, season-ending injury, but he's got great run support and exactly what the Commanders needed. Now we come up with the Bills again. Jalen Royals and Maxwell Hairsteen. Where do we go next? Defensive tackle, I think. And Darius Alexander out of Toledo, they are super happy to get at this pick. And once again, I think that the Bills are super happy with this draft. All 3 of these guys could be all pros and have the potential to be. I think that all 3 of these guys are super solid. Kansas City Chiefs. They got their offensive lineman, and I think this is going to be an interesting pick. I think that they are going to take the Kelsey replacement, and it's not Mason Taylor. It is once again one of my sleepers, Harold Fannin Jr. This guy he led the league, the NCAA, in receiving yards with over 1,500 yards on Bowling Green. And Bowling Green did not play no Mickey Mouse teams. They played Penn State, and I think he dropped like 120 yards on us, or something similar to that. But Harold Fannin Jr. is really underrated. And I see people having like Mason Taylor or Gunnar Helm over him. Harold Fannin is easily the 3rd best tight end in this class. And I think it's not even close. So if you're looking for a receiving tight end, Harold Fannin Jr., and I'm pressing the button on him now. Our last pick of this draft is going to be the Philadelphia Eagles. We finished out getting a defensive end last round. So who do I think we're going to get? I think that they're probably going to get someone in the trenches. I see Wyatt Millam right here, and I think it's going to be him to end the draft, and not the draft, the second round, just because I know they have guards already, Mekhi Becton, Glenn Dickerson. I think they're just going to grab another guy just in case, maybe one of those guys gets hurt. Maybe some depth in the offensive line could be good. And once again, it's kind of just like a BPA kind of situation. Really like Wyatt Millam at this point. So, some winners of this draft. I think the Broncos are definite winners of this draft, getting Egbuka at 33 and then Travion Henderson at 51. Also, the Giants getting Abdul Carter and Luther Burden III. I would love that as a fan of the team. The Patriots get Will Campbell and Josiah Stewart. I think they'll be sneaky. The Chargers getting Tedero McMillan. Huge steal. The Jaguars getting Will Johnson, Derek Harmon, and Jack Beck. Also really big winners. I also love what the Buccaneers did. Malachi Starks and Xavier Watts basically getting that safety duo down and done for the rest of just basically they could be super solid. Both of them, I think. I didn't actually realize it took two safeties for the Buccaneers, but honestly, I think that it's fine. And then who else? Packers maybe with Trey Harris and James Pierce Jr. But I guess overall, once again, please leave a like and subscribe if you liked this video. And once again, if we can get 5 likes or 25 subscribers before the draft, I'll do a 4 or 3 round mock draft depending on what you guys want to see. So I'll see you guys in the next video.